Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. My name is Annisa Inayaty. My student's number is 182122 And now I would like to explain about PostMethod era. In previous presentation, all of my friends have to explain about methodological in ELT. And now, what is PostMethod era? PostMethod era is not another method. This is alternative method, and this is a way of teaching that rejects using technique, procedure, and theoretical assumption of any given methods in the teaching learning process. Besides that, Kumarafadi in 1994 identified what he called the post-method condition. The post-method condition, a result of the widespread dissatisfaction with the conventional concept of method. Rather than subscribe to a single set of procedure, post-method teachers adapt their approach in accordance with local contextual factors. And in a much favor, in 1990, Prabhu argued that there is not one method, but that individual teacher fashion an approach that accords uniquely with their sense of plausibility. Edward Anthony in Richard and Rogers 2014 in 1963, he said that there are three levels of conceptualization of organization in teaching, which include approaches, methods, and technique. By the end of the 20th century, some people spoke of the methods and approaches, and that term called with post-method era. So from that situation, some experts began to question whether the method was feasible to apply, so they just need to focus on the approach. This doubt eventually led them to post-method era. Post-method era initiated by Kumarafadi in 2006. And the reason why there is post-method era. And as Prabhu in 1990, he said if there is no single best method, and each method has its own strengths and weaknesses, and all of method there is still a major emphasis on communicative competence. So in post method we can incorporate aspects from a variety of methodological approaches into a materials development and teaching. And the last, in post method, it is important to consider what fits best rather than choosing single approach to everything. And after this, I would like to show the video. This video in event of Oxford University. The speaker of the video is Diane Larson Freeman. She is a linguistic and professor in one of university in America. She will explain a little about post method. Let's see the video.
Some of my colleagues have said we're actually in a beyond method or post method era, that methods are no longer a valid construct in language teaching. And I would agree. I think we've always been post method if by a method you mean something that's imposed or something where you think one size fits all. Yeah, then we're beyond. I mean, we should never have even thought that way because we know our learners are so different and we're all so different and the context of learning are so different. One size clearly can't fit all. We have to mediate for our learners. However, that's not what a method is to my mind. It's not this thing that's imposed. In fact, for me, What it is a coherent set of thought and action principles or links that you have an idea, and then that therefore translates into a way in which you work with your students. And a particular method would be a whole assembly of such links, a whole constellation of them that provides a coherence to one's practice and a coherence that's satisfying to students as well. Doesn't mean you can't change. It doesn't mean that you're not eclectic in constructing an approach. I think good teachers are. But I'd like to think that good teachers also practice a principled eclecticism, borrowing from here and there, but having a reason for that borrowing. And that's, to me, what a method is. It's that thinking, action together. And so for me, a method is still a very viable construct in the field. And in fact, sometimes those who say we're beyond methods provide guiding principles, which I think is really a method. They might be drawn from research, and that's all well and good. I'm a researcher. I have no problems with research. But saying these are guiding principles and therefore you should do this seems to me to be yet another method. And I've shared that with some of my colleagues nicely. They haven't changed, by the way. The other thing I think when you say we're beyond methods is that you overlook their really important role in language teacher education, because it is a way to induct new teachers into the field, to give them something to hold on to in their first beginning as a neophyte, and then for them to go from that to embroidering and elaborating their own approach. And I think there's a lot of value, especially for beginning teachers.
So from that video, we know if the beyond method or post-method era is no longer valid construct. And the speakers agree with post-method era because the teacher should thinking and action together, because can make a teaching learning process to be balanced. And then in beyond method, this is really important roles in language teachers education, because can be a way to interact new teachers into the field. Kumarafadivelu in 2003, he said there are 3 guiding principles for us to follow as a teacher. The first is particularity. This is including unique learners, unique context, and unique goals. And the second is practicality. In practicality, attention between academic theory and teacher's theory. And the last is possibility. In possibility, the teacher should be brave and should try new ideas in teaching learning. And next is materials in post-method era. In materials post-method era is any and all of has been previously mentioned. I think all of you can remember that, of course. And the second is innovative or creative materials. Of course, because this is the development in methodology in ELT, so the material should innovative and creative. And the last is technology. Technology can be made supporting in materials in post-method era. And next is current trends in materials development. Current trends in materials development based off student input and feedback. Can help teachers to improve their teaching learning in the class to be better. Next is focus on cultural sensitivity and intercultural communication. Movement away from the native speaker models, movement towards comprehensible input and output, movement toward comprehensible enjoyment in the language classroom, more activities, movement away from testing, from memorization, less teacher talking and student more talking, and the last is maximizing student participation. From this current trends, we can know if one of the roles of teacher in post-method condition is a transformative intellectual. a term coined by Girox and quoted by Kumarafadibelu in 2003. In other words, the teacher is not the operator. The teacher is not technical and technician, and the teacher is not consumer in the method. They are only there. They are not only teaching in social knowledge and skills to students, but also how students as critical agents can change existing social realities, and the purpose of education for transformative intellectual teachers such as teachers who refer to Ferris in 2008, thinking is to change society. This means that education is not meant to time but liberate automatically. A teacher must understand, identify, and interpret their experience to create their own theory. Alright, next we can see the reflection for us as a teacher when we use PostMethod Era. And the last is application. PostMethod Era can apply in storytelling with young learners. And when you want to student memorize a process, to use language freely, to develop their own communicative abilities, to learn from each other, to teach adults learners specific grammar rules, and when you are teaching a group of translation students, and then when you want to student to develop language skills useful for a work setting to prepare students and can use in reading class, and when you want to develop students in four skills balanced way, and when you want to develop communicative competence in learners, pause method is can use, because this is not choose a single method. I think this is enough for me. I'm so sorry if there is mistake. Thank you. Wassalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.